Well, good evening. Today we spent the day talking about translations and reflections of exponential functions. And those rules follow true with all kinds of functions. So just to remind you, a function is any graph that you can draw a vertical line through and it only crosses through it one time, right? So at no point will this go through the graph twice, okay? So if you remember from earlier in the year, this is called the absolute value function, which makes the v, okay? And remember functions also, there's only one x for every y. So because y is not repeated, it passes the vertical line test. So for these types of functions, this is the equation. We have f of x equals the absolute value of x. So because we just have x, that graph is just a v at the 0, like this, okay? So this is the graph we had originally. This is the translated graph, okay? So we can see that it went from 0 down 8 units to be translated. So this is a vertical translation down 8 units. So just like we did with the exponential functions, we do the same thing with the absolute value functions. So let's see here. Clear, clear, clear. It's not working. Clear the ink. And we're going to come down here. And so we have absolute value of x, and then we went down 8 units. So just like with the exponential units, I'm going to have my x here, and then it went down 8, so we say minus 8 and submit. So that translated 8 negative. So we just add or subtract onto the equation, okay? So here, again, we have absolute value function, okay? And this is the equation of the function. This is the translated one. So the original one, again, because it's just an x, we assume it's plus 0. So the y-intercept is 0. I didn't draw that very good, but it should be going through like that, okay? So I can see that here we went 5 units to the left. So if you remember from our work today, right, Fred, that when we go to the left, even though it's negative, it's kind of funny. It's not negative 5, we do the opposite, so it's plus 5. So left and right is kind of opposite of what you would think it is. So even though when we translate up, it goes up 8 or down is negative 8, then when we go left to right, horizontally, it's the opposite. So we went negative 5, so we're going to add a positive 5 to the equation. So I'm just going to go down here, and I'm going to, whoops, that's not what I wanted. Insert my absolute value. And just as we learned in class, when we do a horizontal translation, it gets included with the x. So here I'm going to have my absolute value. I'm going to have x. I'm going to add 5 units, and it stays inside the absolute value brackets. So just like we learned in class today, when we go left to right, we put that translation in parentheses. In this case, we have the absolute value brackets. So I have x because the function is the absolute value of x. And then we moved it 5 to the right, so it goes plus 5. And we got it, I think. Yeah, okay. Here we're given if you remember correctly, a parabola, okay? It's a quadratic equation. So this is the equation for the parabola, x squared, okay? And it's not plus anything, so we assume it's x squared plus 0. So that means the parabola originally started up here at the 0, okay? So this is the translated one, so we can see that it went down 4 units, right? So all we have to do is take our equation, and remember the vertical ones are just plus or minus added onto the equation. So I'm going to come down here. Oops, sorry. I keep forgetting to incorporate my mouse. Come on, mouse. Somehow Fred keeps pausing that, and I don't know what you're doing, Fred. Fred, cut that out. All right. So we're going to come down here. We know that it dropped 4 units. So we have x squared is the formula for quadratic equations, and it dropped 4, so we're just going to put in -4 and then enter, and we did it. Fantastic. Okay, so here again we have our original formula for quadratics is the x squared. So this parabola started up over somewhere here at the 0. I did that really bad, sorry. So then we can see that we translated it from here to here, -5 units, but remember we write +5 in our equation. And we also write when it's a horizontal, we have to put that in parentheses, just like we did with the exponentials today. So all I have to do is I have to come down here, and I'm going to do parenthesis this time because it's a horizontal, x squared, and I went left 5, so I do +5. Okay? If it went 5 this way, I do -5. So it's the opposite of kind of the direction it's going horizontally. Okay? So, uh-oh, what'd I do? The correct answer, oh, I put the squared on the inside. I'm supposed to put it on the outside. Sorry, I forgot to do that. Don't make my same mistake. So I put x squared on the inside. It was supposed to be x squared on the outside. Sorry. Forgot about that. Silly mistake. Okay. So, so basically what you want to remember is for vertical translation, so let's just write this little note down. So vertical translations, we're going to add or subtract the units it went up and down. And all these start at 0 because they're just real simple ones. When we're doing a horizontal translation, and we did talk about this in class today, we do the opposite of what we see. So if it goes left, we use plus the units. If it goes right, we put minus that number of units. So in this case, it was at 0. It went left 2, so I'm going to have the absolute value of x plus 2. Okay? And then, oops, I already made a mistake. This was my next note. It has to be in parentheses. So in this case, because we absolute value, we're just going to do plus 2. And so horizontal must be in parentheses. And we're going to try this a little bit tomorrow morning when you get into class and see how you do. Okay? So make sure you have your little notes about horizontal, vertical. This was, today is the 1st. And this was on translations of functions. And it was of all kind of functions. FCN, that's functions. Okay? So make sure you have those, and then we will give this a shot tomorrow morning. Have a good night.